Hey y'all, it's Trish again with Dishing with Trish on relationships. Today I wanted to talk to you about Gottman, again, Dr. John Gottman, and his theory of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Now, when I used to ask, excuse me, there's a gnat in here. When I used to ask my classes about that, they all agreed that they had heard of that reference before, the four horsemen. And if I pushed them, someone would finally say, well, it's from the Bible, right? And I'd say, yes, the book of Revelation. Can you name who the four horsemen are? And we'd beat out eventually that there was death. They all know that one. And then famine and pestilence and I forget the other. War. There you go. Some of them were liable to say that their exposure to the four horsemen of the apocalypse came from the show Supernatural, which, okay, at least you've heard of it. But in this case, we're talking about relationships, not the world apocalypse. We're talking about the end, the beginning of the end of your relationship. I'm getting lots of glare here, so I'm going to take those off. Instead of war, famine, pestilence, and death, Gottman says that criticism, contempt, I'm having a senior moment, criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling are the four horsemen for your relationship. When these four things show up in your communication with your partner, it's the beginning of the end. So let's look at each one of them real briefly. The first one, criticism. I think everybody knows what that looks and sounds like. I hate it. I do not take criticism gracefully. It kind of throws me for a loop, and it's something that I need to work on. A lot of people need to work on. I think if we could find someone who enjoys criticism, they would be a different animal altogether, wouldn't they? But criticism is like, you forgot to take the trash out again. Boy, why'd you choose that way? You wanted to do it the hard way. Criticism is nitpicking. And what is the natural response to criticism? It's just like a tennis game. Defensiveness. You knocked the ball into my court with a comment like, well, I'm going to knock it right back into your court with my defensiveness. Oh, yeah? Well, look at what you did. So you get that volley going back and forth. Criticism, defensiveness. Criticism, defensiveness. The third one, contempt. This is a bigger horse. This is a more malignant horse. Contempt is vocal. It can also be body language, like facial expressions, or just turning away completely. But contempt is when you place yourself on a higher plane and you're talking down to your partner. That's contempt. Like if we started with criticism, you forgot to pay the light bill again. Goes to defensiveness, the other partner answers, oh yeah, well, at least I didn't forget to pick the kids up at school. Boop, 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 we're playing tennis now. And then someone will raise it to the level of contempt. Contempt would be like, well, at least I'm not an idiot around money. You just called your partner an idiot around money. That's saying that, well, you are better at it or more gifted in finance or what have you. That's contempt. Contempt is one of the major indicators that you are on the road to breaking up or divorce. It's also such a powerful horseman that the number of times that a person is a recipient of contempt has also been linked through research to the number of infectious diseases that that person will contract within the next year. Okay, it sounds like I just flew off into la la land there, but think about it for a minute. Receiving this contempt from your partner is such a hit to your personhood that you dump cortisol, fight or flight, into your system. Your level of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, raises significantly. And something that happens when cortisol raises significantly is that your immune responses tank significantly. So if you are constantly being bombarded with contempt, your immunity is probably suffering also. And you walk across the street, you might catch the flu. Someone else who doesn't receive that much contempt might not. Make sense? Okay, I hope so. Contempt is a nasty bugger. All right, the fourth one, stonewalling. This one's a little interesting too. Stonewalling is when one person just leaves the argument. They just dig in their heels and they're not on the playing field anymore. They're just within themselves. They don't want to add any more to the argument. For a long time, it was thought that stonewalling happened when one partner didn't care enough to fight anymore. Sometimes there comes that point where your partner tries to pick a fight with you and you just don't care enough to fight anymore. But turns out that was wrong. That's not what stonewalling is. Gottman's research told us that stonewalling is actually a partner's attempt to self-soothe, to get their processes back into a calm state so as not to make the relationship and the moment any worse. So they just kind of back off and try to get their heart rate, try to get their blood pressure, trying to get all of that under control again. And the other person is thinking, what? You're not speaking to me anymore? And they keep coming. So stonewalling happens more often amongst the male of the species than it does with the female, but females do stonewall sometimes too. But think about it from a male point of view here. Say there's a fellow, he's in an argument with his partner. He starts the stonewalling business. Let's make his partner in this scenario female. So he starts stonewalling. He's shut up. He's possibly even trying to leave the room. Well, what's going to happen from the female standpoint if you're in the middle of a really good cooking argument and your partner leaves the room on you? Yeah, my female friends know. We are liable to just follow you right into that next room going all the way. So, he's tried fight. Fight is not working. He's tried flight. Oh my God, she's following me and keeping at it. So, he's left with nothing else really to do but freeze. And that is that stop everything right where it is before it gets any worse. Try to get the blood pressure, try to get the heart rate under control. That's where it comes from. It doesn't really help much, but sometimes it is better to shut your mouth than to say the next thing that comes into your head when you're in the heat of an argument. In the heat of the argument is the worst time to try to settle an argument. It helps a lot if a couple will push the timeout button or signal to the refs that they need a timeout. So excited, football season's coming. So take time out and say, let's talk about this when we're both calmer. We're not dropping it forever. I know you have things you need to get said, and we do need to settle this, but we're not going to do it well right now because we're both all worked up. So make a date to talk about it again. Okay? So we've gone over the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and we're going to avoid them like the plague. That's criticism. Nobody enjoys that. Defensiveness. Oh, yeah? Well, you. Hitting the ball back over the net. Contempt, which is a very malignant horseman. That's when you're talking down to your partner. You're putting yourself on a higher plane, saying that you're better than your partner. Don't. It's a big indicator of divorce, and it can also make the recipient of contempt more likely to get ill because they're immunity tanks. And then the 5th one, stonewalling, which I hope you understand a little bit better now. Okay? Catch you next time. Thank you.